video, we'll discuss about the theories of the child psychology. So let's start with the classification of the theories of the child psychology. They are broadly classified into three uh, categories. The first one is the psychodynamic theories. Then we have the theories of the learning and development of the behavior. And then we'll have the Margaret S. Meller's theory of development. So starting with the psychodynamic theories, which were proposed first, and in that we have the first one as the psychosexual theory or the psychoanalytical theory, and it was proposed by Sigmund Freud in 1905. Then we have the psychosocial theory or the model of personality development, which was given by Eric Erikson in 1963, and the cognitive theory, which was given by Jean Piaget in 1952. Then came the theories of the learning and development of the behavior. The first one was the hierarchy of needs given by Maslow in 1954. Then the social learning theory given by Bandura in 1963. Then the classical conditioning by Pavlov in 1927 and the operant conditioning by Skinner 1938. Then we have the S. Mellor theory of the development. This is the third category. Now all these theories as well as their proposers and the year in which they were proposed or given, all these are very important, and there were multiple questions which have been asked frequently on these theories in past also, right? Now, starting with the psychosexual theory or the psychoanalytical theory, which was given by Sigmund Freud. Now, this Sigmund Freud basically described the human mind with the help of two models. So, he used two models to describe the human's mind. The first one was the topographical model, and then second one was the psychic model or the psychic triad. So, let's start with the topographic model. So, according to the topographical model, which was given by Sigmund Freud, he says that human mind consists of three factors: the conscious, preconscious, and subconscious mind. Now, the human mind basically is like an iceberg, right? So, as you can see that whenever there is an iceberg, only 10% of part can be visible outside, but actually 90% of the part is hidden in the water. So it's the same way he applied the this iceberg concept in this, and he said that 10% of the human mind is visible to the external people, right? So that is conscious even to the external people as well as to him also, right? And 90% is just unconscious. So we can see in the figure. So this is the fluid concept of the human psyche, and this is also known as the iceberg metaphor. So what it says that only 10% is conscious, just 90% is unconscious. Now, in the conscious mind, he is aware of everything, right? Rest 90% the person is not aware. So we'll have the preconscious, in which we have the superego and the ego, and unconscious, in which we have id. So basically, this ego is free floating at all the three levels. So it will go to the conscious sometimes, preconscious sometimes, and the unconscious sometimes, right? Then we have the psychic model. Now, what is the psychic model? It consists of three parts. First is id, then ego, and then we have the superego. So, what is id? So, it is the most primitive part of the personality from which other two systems develop, right? So, basically, it operates on the pleasure principle and attempts to obtain the pleasure. So, the id basically runs on pleasure pain principle, while this ego runs on reality principle, and the superego runs on the moral principle. So what does that mean? These principles basically will help you to try to decipher this particular id, ego, and the superego. So again, I would like to describe the id. It is basically defined as the inherited reservoir of the unorganized drives. So there will be unorganized drives, and these are mostly unconscious, and it is governed by the pleasure pain principle, and it aims at immediate satisfaction of the urges. So it aims at satisfaction of the urges, and it is basically unconscious, as we have seen in the topographical model also, right? Then we have the ego. Now, what is this ego? It develops from id in second to 6 months of life, and ego is governed by reality principle. So basically, the ego tells you it is the balance between the id and superego, and it tries to live in the reality, right? So this governs on the reality principle and the ability to understand that their impulses cannot always be gratified immediately comes with the development of the ego. So basically, the impulses which have to be satisfied immediately in the id, but in ego, they are not needed to be gratified immediately. Then we have in the ego itself, we can also define it as the integration or mediation part of the personality. That means the id and superego, there will be a mediation with this, and it develops out of the interaction of id as well as the outer environment. So it has the perception of both internal as well as external environment, right? Or I must say internal or external world. Then we have the superego. Now, what is the superego? It represents the internalization representation of our values and morals. That's why it runs on the moral principle and the values of the morals of the society as taught to the child by every parents and other elders. It strives for perfection. So that particular superego is basically the values and morals which are taught to the child by parents, right? So superego, it can also be defined as the latest development of the mind embodying the code of society and including concepts of right and wrong. So the superego teaches you what is right and what is wrong. So those concepts are incorporated there, and the value systems and ideals are given more preference in this superego system. So basically, again coming to it, psychic model has three factors: id, ego, and superego, of which ego runs on the reality principle, id uh, runs on the pleasure principles, and superego strives to get the perfection and it runs on the values and morals which our society teaches us, right? Now let's see the stages of the Sigmund Freud's model. So there are five stages in the Freud's model. The first one is the oral stage, then we have the anal stage, then the phallic stage, latency stage, and the genital stage. So starting with the oral stage first, this is seen from birth to 1 year according to some books. Some say that between 1 to 2 years, this particular oral stage is seen in the children. Now, this oral stage states that the child's primary source of pleasure is through the mouth. So, maximum pleasure is obtained by mouth, and that's why mouth is the site for identifying needs, and satisfaction of the oral desires is done by sucking. Then we can also see eating and tasting. So, all these will happen developing the trust of the child. That's why the sucking helps in the development of the trust in this particular oral stage. Then we have the anal stage. So this is seen between 1 to 3 years or 2 to 3 years, and this anal stage, at this anal stage, the children gain a sense of mastery and competence by controlling the bladder and bowel movements. So they will be able to control their bladder and bowel movement. If they are able to control these, they will be having a mastery on this stage. So the anal zone becomes the primary zone of pleasure. Gratification is derived from expelling or withholding the feces. So the overemphasis, if the patient are overemphasized and they are training the child about the toilet training, so that will be resulting in the compulsive as well as the obstinate personality. And if it is less controlled toilet training is given, then it will be a impulsive personality later. Now coming to the third stage, that is the phallic stage. Now this phallic stage, in this the libido's energy is focused on the genitals basically. So the children begin to identify with their same sex patient parents, as well as the children will be able to get attracted towards the opposite sex patients also. So the child develops attraction towards opposite sex patients, and this is called as Oedipus complex if it is a boy, and Electra complex if it is a girl. So what is Oedipus complex? In this, the young boys have a natural tendency to attach to the mother, and they consider their father as their enemy at this stage, right? Then we have the latency stage. This is the fourth stage, right? And this latency stage or the latent period can also be seen between the 6 to 11 years of age, or 7 to 11 year of age, right? And this stage corresponds with the development of mixed dentition and character formation. So the maturation of ego takes place in this stage, as well as further development of the personality and skill will be occurring in this latent period or the latency stage. So basically, the libido's energy is suppressed, and children are focused on other activities such as school, friends, and hobbies. All these will be getting more concentration by the child. Then we have the genital stage. Now, in the genital stage, the children begin to explore romantic relationships. So, the sense of identity develops, can satisfy genital potency, and realize goals of the reproduction. Now, coming to the psychosocial theory. Now, Eric Erikson has given the psychosocial theory, and Erikson concentrated on child's development, covering the entire span of the life cycle from infancy to childhood through the old ages. So, he described 8 ages of the life cycle, which takes the whole psychosocial uh, aspects of the child in consideration, starting from the infancy to the old age. So the first one here is the basic trust versus basic mistrust. That signifies the hope. It is seen in the infants of 0 to 1 years. And if we want to correlate this to the fruit stage, so it will correlate to the oral stage. Then we have the autonomy versus shame, that is will, seen in the toddlers of 1 to 2 years, and then this will be corresponding to the anal stage of Sigmund Freud fruits stage. Then we have the initiative versus guilt, that is the purpose, and it is seen in the early childhood, that is 2 to 6 years of age, and this corresponds with the latent period stage of the Sigmund Freud stage. Then we have the industry versus inferiority, that is the competence, and elementary and middle school children of age of around 6 to 12 years will be having this particular stage. And this particular stage, oh sorry, the earlier one, the initiative versus guilt, that is the purpose, the third stage, falls or correspond with the phallic stage, while the industry versus inferiority will be corresponding to the latent stage. Right. Then we have the identity versus role confusion. So what is this? The identity versus role confusion. The children develop a personality that identify and has a sense of self. So the children start having the sense of self, and this is known as the fidelity, and seen in adolescence of 12 to 18 years of age. And this particular stage corresponds with the genital stage of the Sigmund Freud. Then we have the intimacy versus isolation, that is love, seen in the young adulthood. Then the generativity versus the stagnation, that is the care. Okay, that is seen in the middle adulthood, and the integrity versus the despair, that is the wisdom, later adulthood, that is 65 years of age, right? So these three basically are the stages of the adulthood, right? In the intimacy versus the isolation, we have the young adults which seek out romantic love and companionship. The generate this thing, the generativity as well as the versus the stagnation. In this, the patient which are middle-aged adults, and they try to nurture other and contribute to the society. And when we have the integrity versus the despair, in this stage, the older adults reflect on their lives, looking back with a sense of fulfillment or the bitterness. So these are the stages which were described by Eric Erikson, and these 8 stages takes you from the infancy to the adulthood or to the older age. Now we have the cognitive theory. Now this theory is based on how children, adolescents think and acquire knowledge. So according to Piaget, Jean Piaget, environment does not shape child's behavior, but the child and adults seek to understand the environment, and that's how their behavior is changed. Now, this process of adaptation is made of following three variations. The first one is the assimilation. Now, this assimilation is concerned with observing, recognizing, and taking an object and relating it with the earlier experiences. Then we have the accommodation. It accounts for changing concepts and strategies as well as the equilibration. This refers to the changing basic assumptions so that facts will be um, fitting to whatever we are thinking to that better, right? Now we have the stages of the development. So there are 4 stages of the development. the sensorimotor stage of the development 0 to 2 years, pre-operational stage 2 to 6 years, concrete operational stage that is 6 to 12 years, and the formal operation stage that is between the age of 11 to 15 years. So all these stages we have to remember. In sensorimotor stage, the child begins to interact with the environment and it plays with the toys while sitting on the dental chair. So we can have a clinical correlation, and there can be a question. The child sits in the dental clinic and he plays with the toys while sitting on the dental chair, and this is the sensory motor stage. Then animism and constructivism are seen in the pre-operational stage. The concrete operational stage, in which egocentrism is seen, as well as the symbolic play is seen in the sensorimotor and pre-operational stages. Now the classical conditioning. So in this there are four principles. Generally some books says five principles are involved. So acquisition, generalization, discrimination, extinction. So when I say acquisition, so it is basically the acquiring, learning a new experience, right? For example, fear of dentist, fear of white coat, drilling, needles, all these are acquisitions, right? When you learn it through a new experience, right? So the acquisition, learning a new response from the environment. Then the generalization. So generalization, it is basically generalizing all similar stimuli, like all white coat people can be dangerous and can cause pain. Like this, we can generalize this to the similar stimuli. So the process of conditioning is evoked by a band of stimuli centered around a specific conditional stimulus. So suppose a patient had a fear with a white coat person. Maybe the treatment was painful with the white coat dentist. So he will consider every dentist. Yeah, he will generalize everything, and he will generalize that all white coat people are going to cause him the pain, like this. Then we have the extinction. So disappearance of the acquired knowledge is known as the extinction. So for example, a patient loses fear of dentist and dental procedures when once the treatment was painless, right? So the extinction, subsequent visit to a stimuli without any unpleasant experience will result in extinction of the fear. Then we have the discrimination. So what is this? The discrimination basically is differentiating individual stimuli. So if a person gets a uh, perception that not all dentists or not all dental procedures are painful, that is called as discrimination. You are able to discriminate. So it can be just opposite the generalization, right? Now, the spontaneous recovery is something which we should know. So what is this spontaneous recovery? This is basically the reappearance of the extinguished response. So for example, in the subsequent dental visit, if the dentist takes it for granted, then the child knows the procedure very well and fails to use adequate behavior management strategies, fear of dental procedure will reappear, right? So in the same way, the spontaneous recovery, when if the extinction is there, it is just opposite the extinction, and this will be due to the carelessness of the dentist, there can be reappearance of the fear in the child. So this is known as the spontaneous recovery. Now the Malus theory, he basically divided the childhood in three stages. The first one, the normal autistic phase. You have to remember the ages of these, 0 to 1 years. Then we have the normal symbiotic phase, that is 3 to 4 weeks to 4 to 5 months. And the third one is the separation individualization process between 5 to 36 months. Now, these 5 to 36 months are further subdivided into four sub stages. The differentiation, practicing period. Differentiation is for 5 to 10 months. Then we have the practicing period for 10 to 16 months. The approachment 16 to 24 months, and the consolidation and object constancy around 24 to 36 months of age, that is 2 to 3 years. Operant conditioning. Now this operant conditioning means whenever there is a reinforcement or whenever there is a change in the behavior of a patient due to certain external factors, that is something called operant conditioning. So trying to get a better definition, individual's response has changed as a result of reinforcement or extinction of the previous response. So a satisfactory outcome will be repeated while unsatisfactory outcomes will be diminished in the frequency. So there are four types of operant conditioning. The first one is the positive reinforcement, then we have the negative reinforcement, omission, and the punishment. So these are the four basic types of operant conditioning which can be incorporated. Then we have hierarchy of needs. So what is hierarchy of needs? It simply states that there is a hierarchy of needs which is there, or desires which is there. So first you have the basic needs. After you fulfill your basic needs, then you will go to the higher level. So the same way the hierarchy needs will be working. So the needs are arranged in a hierarchy, and as a one general type of need is satisfied, another higher order need will be emerging. So the desires from most basic biological need to the more psychological ones become important only after basic needs have been satisfied. So there is a compulsion that first you have to satisfy your basic need, then more higher order needs will be emerging. Then we have the social learning theory. Now, in the social learning theory, it is the most complete, clinically useful, as well as theoretically a sophisticated form of the behavior therapy. So basically, it's a sophisticated form of behavior therapy. So learning of behavior is affected by four elements. So what are these four elements which affect the learning of the behavior? The first one is the antecedent determinants. Now, then we have the consequent determinants, the modeling, and the self-regulation. So what is antecedent determinants? The conditioning is affected if the person is aware of what is occurring. If the person is aware of the what is going on in the surrounding, so there will be, this is known as the antecedent determinant. Then we have the consequent determinant. The person's perception and expectancy determine the behavior of the person. Then we have the modeling. So modeling is basically when you see a person doing something, you try to imitate the same thing. So it is learning through the observation of some person or some procedure. Then we have the self-regulation. So this system involves a process of the self-regulation, judgment, and evaluation of individual's response to his own behavior.